For station number 2, you're going to be reading an Achieve article called Living Bridges Are Evergreen. So make sure you get this handout. It's got a front and a back. Put your first and last name on here. And I want you to see if you can list the 5 text structures that we've been talking about. So pause the screencast, see if you can remember them, and if you can't, there's probably some kind of a text feature somewhere around the room that will help you remember them. So pause the screencast and then come back and check. All right, so the text structures are compare and contrast, cause and effect, problem and solution, chronological order, and description. So one of the things we're going to look at as we read the article on the back is organizing information to these text structures. And the other thing we want you to do is start taking note of how writers write. The best way to become a good writer is to look at examples of good writing. And so in the Achieve article, you're going to look for how they vary their sentence types and comma rules. So let's do a quick review of comma rules. These are 5 rules that we've been talking about pretty consistently, especially since we started reading Crispin. So the first rule is with a compound sentence. I want to go skiing at Alpine, but I have homework to do first. So I've got a comma conjunction with a subject and a verb. On this side, I want and I have. So that's a compound sentence, and that's why I have to have a comma there. Another rule for a comma is a transition. If you add a group of words at the beginning of the sentence, this one's a dependent clause. If I get done quickly, comma, maybe we can go for a few hours. I've got my dependent clause at the beginning, so it needs a comma because it's a transition. Sometimes we have a list. A list is a lot like what we do with a thesis statement, where we make set out what our 3 topics are going to be. Here, I have a list of the slopes I want to hit when I go to Alpine. I want to hit outer limits, comma, exhibition, comma, and Alpine twist. Rule number 4 is an appositive. Appositives give extra information in the sentence. They always come right after nouns. So here's a noun that says upper expedition, and there's a comma after it. And then there's a phrase in the middle that says one of the only 2 black diamonds. So if you don't know what upper exhibition is in my sentence, I gave it to you within the appositive. And then the last one is a coordinate adjective. Snowbelt is the longest, comma, straightest trail. That's when you have 2 adjectives describing the same noun. So I'm going to give you a sentence here, and we're going to go through and you're going to practice. I want you to eliminate any phrases, just like we've been doing. Look to see if there's a coordinating conjunction to make it compound, a subordinating, which would make it complex, or neither, which would make it simple. And you're going to label the subjects and verbs. After that, we'll then decide what's the purpose for the comma. So I'm going to ask you to pause the screencast and then go try it and then come back and check. So after you do part A, you'll see that you found 4 different prepositional phrases: on a misty morning, in the mountains of northeast India, and through a steep rocky gorge. Then that leaves you with a turbulent river rages. There's no coordinating conjunction, so it's not compound. And there's no subordinating because the subject is river, and the river does what? It rages. So this is a simple sentence, so you can put an S in this box. Now I've got to figure out the comma rules, and I see 2 commas in here. The first one is right here, and it's at the end of all of my prepositional phrases. So I know that that must be a transition, and that's rule number 2. And then I see another comma over here in this prepositional phrase, and it says through a steep, comma, rocky gorge. Well, I know that the noun is at the end of the prepositional phrase and modifiers are in the middle. So I have 2 adjectives in the middle describing the same noun. Up here, that would be rule number 5. Now, because we didn't do stations last week, I'm realizing I didn't switch out this sentence. So you can just cross this off. We are not going to do this sentence today. So you can now flip to the back of your paper. You're going to read the article, and you're going to take your time before you answer your question to go through and look at each of these text structures, filling this paper in, and then using it to help you answer questions. It's going to start with a good, strong description. The author starts with a descriptive image for his hook. What makes the bridge unique, and what is it made of? Jot some ideas in here as you read. Then you're going to look at a compare and contrast. It's going to compare their bridge with a traditional bridge. What do they have different and what do they have in common? They're going to talk about a problem that exists with these bridges and why these bridges were made and how they solved it. A cause and effect relationship. And again, there are many, many different cause and effect relationships that you could find. You're just looking for one thing and how it impacted something else. And then you're going to look for 4 different events in chronological order. So when you compare, contrast, and you can jot these words down, sometimes you're looking for words like same, or different, or similar, or like, or alike, or in contrast. So take a second and jot these words down. Some words you might see in problem solution are problem or solve, okay, or just solution or issue. But any other word that might indicate that you've got some kind of a conflict or problem that you're trying to solve. For cause and effect, you might see as a result, or however, or so, or consequently. And again, we're not limited to those. Those are just some examples, but those are the words you're going to look for, and they might help you find your cause and effect. Sometimes for chronological, they'll say things like first, next. Sometimes they'll give you dates that are very specific, and from those dates you have to see if it said something like 10 years later. So you can, you may have to do a little bit of math to figure them out. Okay, so you're going to read the article, take your time, fill in some answers, and then some information, and then do the questions. And when you're done, come turn this paper in.